Greetings, good people. I trust you're well. I am. This is the story of my employment as an accountant. I graduated from the University of Nairobi in mid 1983 and was employed by the head of accountancy services, that is in the government, and posted to and seconded to office of the president. And then I was posted to Kilifi as a district accountant too. I stayed in Kilifi for up to 1985 uh, where I was sponsored for a course for a CPA course at Kenya Institute of Administration, which was at Kabete at that time. I don't know where it is now, and that was a place where there is now the current Nairobi University School of Accountancy is based. I was not able to finish the course because the DC had been working under in Kilifi didn't like me and kept on, writing all sorts of strange letters about me. So when I was at KIA, he would summon me back to Kilifi to answer some spurious questions, which would just me going to call for a file, and I show him what was required, and then I'm released to go back. 2 weeks later, another signal, police signal. So basically, it interfered with my work. I reported this matter earlier on when the animosity had become too much to the then PC Coast, the late Yusuf Haji. And he promised to look into it and see what could be done. So now, when I was getting interrupted with my studies at Kabete, I went to see the head of accounting, the office of the president, accounts controller, who was then the late Mr. Choki. And I explained to him the situation and the fact that I had mentioned that I had reported to the PC Coast. And I think after consultation, it was decided I will transfer to Taita Taveta. So now I'd left my family in the government house in Kilifi. My wife was then in college. So it was my mother, my daughter, and a maid living in that house. Of course, I would go home every so often just to make sure they are doing well. They are well. But then I would travel on Friday night, stay with them up to Sunday, and then travel on Sunday night again back to Nairobi in time to go to Kabete for my studies. But when I was being summoned to Kilifi by the DC, I had to travel on a working day because I had to be in the office either on a Friday or on Wednesday, on Monday. That's why it was interfering with my studies. Anywho, so I'm transferred to Taita Taveta, and so I go to Taita Taveta and explain that I show the papers that I'm in KIA, and I was allowed to continue. Then I get a letter from the DC that I must hand over the government house we are living in Kilifi within a month. I had only done, I think by that time, only 2 months of the 6-month course. So now moving my people to, moving my, having to move to Taita Taveta brought a number of issues. So anyway, I had to postpone the training, went to Kilifi, did the handing over, and moved to Taita Taveta. So I was in Taita Taveta between 1985 and 1987. And incidentally, I was in charge. When I was posted to Taita Taveta, I was put in charge of the treasury. So it was a promotion, which for me was a good thing. Now, so as we and I found a very good DC. He was also new. He had just turned up new, and he was very fair, and we worked very well for quite a while. Then again, I was now transferred to. There was a problem that had been there in the 2 district treasuries, which I had handled very well, and so now it seemed the same problem was in Kisii. So the accounts controller, by that time, Mr. Choki had retired, and a new gentleman called, I can't remember his name, Swahili, had taken over. And in fact, he visited Taita Taveta because of the good reports that were coming out of the treasury. And I remember taking him for lunch at Voi Safari Lodge, of course, on government time and the transport and everything. And then he told me he needed me to go to Kisii to sort out the problem. Now, this is a time when my daughter had just started going to nursery school, actually to kindergarten in Taita Taveta. And my wife had just finished college and was posted to Sungululu Primary School, which is in Unani. So, we're just settling down as a family. And I'm supposed to go to Kisi. I was like, hey, this is now becoming too much. Anyway, so uh, fate. So I went. I was sent to Nairobi for some business, and met somebody in a bar, and we struck a conversation that ended up me getting a job at London. There was a motormat group which owned motor companies like Toyota. At that time, it was also doing Fiat. It was doing Mitsubishi Fuso. It was doing massive Ferguson truck. A big conglomerate. Motormat Group was part of the Londro Group of Londro East Africa, which was a major conglomerate actually in the world. So I got my job at Toyota Kenya. So I quit the civil service and moved to Nairobi. Uh, by 1994, the effects of Goldenberg were beginning to affect a lot of businesses. So there was a downsizing of sorts in Motormat Group, where I'd been promoted to be operations manager of one of the divisions, which was based in Hurlingham. And of course, that time the downsizing started with the highly paid Africans, unfortunately. So, and I was fairly well up there. So I was slated to leave. And my boss, because he was my friend, gave me a heads up, and they protected me for a couple of months while I looked around. And then when I couldn't get anything, well, I left. And I went for a drink at a place called Mungo Akaiti, which is in Hamza off Jogo Road, because we lived in Buruburu at that time. I met a friend of mine who used to share a drink, and I told him I'll be looking for a job. And he told me Kenya Pipeline is looking for a job for an accountant. So I applied and I got a job in Kenya Pipeline, where I worked up to 2002 and rose from accountant 2 to chief accountant. And then something happened and I was fired in 2003 and I got into business. All that story, of course, that's a very brief, but all that story with a lot of intrigues and a lot of exciting things and all that is in this book. Get your copy and get the full story. Details on how you can get the story are in the description of this video.